What if battle droids were smart? In the main Star Wars story, the Separatists opted for a strategy of quantity over quality, making inexpensive droids with little problem-solving aptitude in order to overwhelm their opponents. They weren't adaptable, and they relied heavily on the competence of their commanders. However, one of our viewers suggested that what if instead the battle droids were built to be more intelligent? I hope that you've settled in, because this is going to be a wild story that takes some unexpected turns. Now, without further ado, let's dive into today's what-if scenario. Our story begins during Attack of the Clones, when Dooku assembles the corporate council on Geonosis and tries to sell them on the idea of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. All of the businesses present agree to sign his treaty. However, during this time, the banking clan representative, Sun Hill, posits a recommendation to Dooku. He states that if the banking clan is to sign this treaty, he wants to be absolutely certain of a separatist victory. He had heard whispers from colleagues in the Senate of a new clone army that had been introduced to the galaxy to defend the Republic, and he wanted to be sure that his financial support would be a worthwhile investment. He says that rather than simply use the normal B1 and B2 artificial intelligence, which was only programmed to follow orders, that they be given an improved mind that would allow them to easily counter the clones' problem-solving skills. Newt Gunray, who was the one with a massive army of these droids at his disposal, calls for a brief recess so that he can discuss this proposition with his colleagues. After speaking with Wat Tambor, head of the Techno Union, the two return, and Newt Gunray agrees to Sandhill's proposition. However, he says that the Confederacy would have to pay a pretty penny for their new toys. All of the others in attendance are in accord, and Dooku's treaty is signed by these corporate leaders. How does this change the course of the war in the galaxy? Let's keep going and find out. Because the battle droids used in the Battle of Geonosis were already programmed with the standard artificial intelligence, the battle proceeds almost exactly as it does in Attack of the Clones. However, soon after the battle, the same programming that is used in the tactical droids begins to be placed inside the minds of regular B1 and B2 battle droids. Because the quality of the product is higher, the manufacturers up the price, allowing for less units to be made. However, matching the Republic by using their same strategy of quality over quantity seems to be effective. The Separatist leadership decides to strike key Republic targets rather than spreading their forces thin across the Outer Rim. Naturally, Republic military leadership advises Palpatine to do the same. Due to his desire to prolong the war for as long as possible, though, he ends up ordering the same strategies that he does in the Clone Wars television series. He launches special forces to train guerrilla troops on separatist-occupied worlds, along with pushing forward into the Outer Rim. He justifies this to the Senate by stating that many Confederacy systems are in the Outer Rim, and by sending out more troops to counter the spread of their dangerous ideology, then the Republic could eventually wear them down and emerge victorious. Many senators begin to see, though, that this strategy clearly isn't working. While in the Clone Wars show, it often seemed like the war was simply a stalemate, with both sides taking wins and losses. In this scenario, the more intelligent battle droids are able to take key Republic targets with far more ease. Oftentimes, crucial Republic worlds in the mid-rim and core are left ill-defended by Palpatine, who believes that the Separatists would never have the audacity to attack planets so deep in Republic space, or at least this is what he articulates to his military commanders. This school of thinking is challenged, and when the more skillful droids begin attacking crucial Republic production worlds, the Senate starts to get agitated. Palpatine, seeing that he is losing his grip on the Senate, decides that he will advocate for new batches of clones to be brought in to defend the Republic from separatist incursions. Some senators, such as Padme Amidala, ask why Palpatine is using their troops to wage an offensive war against the Confederacy rather than keeping their defense force within Republic space to better secure their own sovereignty, as clearly the Republic people were suffering due to these droid attacks. Many senators agree, raising concerns about how close the Confederacy forces had come to their own worlds, and also remarking that there seemed to be less senators present in the building today due to them being taken hostage by these foreign invaders. Furthermore, attacks from various criminal groups, such as Hondo Onaka's gang of pirates, had begun to ramp up, and it seemed like the Republic was crumbling. Palpatine assures the Republic that his strategy was working and that they simply needed to remain calm. He also says that, as a last resort, he could use his executive powers to create a new contingent of the military, one where volunteers from the population would sign up to serve against the Separatists. Many of the senators present seem to nod in agreement, but Mon Mothma raises her voice against this, stating that she was seeing a disturbing shift of the Republic towards a more authoritarianism and the development of a military-industrial complex. Bail Organa agrees with her, saying that it would be unprecedented for a chancellor to issue such an executive order without the approval of the Senate, and they would be opening the floodgates to the possibility of more of this in the future. Palpatine simply smiles, saying that he loves democracy, and decides to put it to a vote. To his relief, the Senate overwhelmingly approves of his idea, due to the encroaching nature of the Separatist threat, and a volunteer army is established. This feeds into Palpatine's plan, as later he will be able to conscript soldiers, and he knows that there will be little resistance from the government. Battles continue to rage across the galaxy. Captain Rex works alongside Anakin and Ahsoka, going where the Senate tells them to. They still struggle against the more advanced droids, but because of their shared loyalty to one another, the clones are usually able to prevail against their droid foes. Despite their increased intelligence, the droids still lack the humanity that the clones have. So, when they face off against cohesive units such as the 501st or 212th, they normally fall short of their objectives. Separatist leadership continues to strike key Republic targets, crippling their infrastructure further. Malastare is actually taken over by the Separatists, again due to Palpatine's poor planning, which is a key energy source for the Republic. Soon, Corellia is too, and Republic ship manufacturing is severely impacted. Admiral Trench becomes infamous throughout the Republic as an individual who is able to absolutely decimate any naval commander who dares challenge him. Even Admiral Wolf Yularen, a man who had become a Republic war hero, was forced to retreat because of Trench's knack for naval warfare. Grievous is also known to be a brutal commander, and his intelligent droids are often able to bring clone forces to their knees due to his sheer violence. Grievous definitely violates the Geneva Conventions multiple times over. It's at this time that the new soldiers are introduced to the military. The volunteers from across the galaxy don the Phase 3 clone armor, or some variant of it for whatever species they are, and they begin to join the fight in the Republic. This definitely boosts the standing of the Republic military, especially with the new numbers. They're now able to push back against Separatist offensives into their territory, and the Outer Rim sieges begin to see more success with the increased number of willing soldiers. One thing that begins to happen, though, is that they start to divide the ranks. They often look down on clones as inferior beings, almost like slaves. These soldiers are seen as citizens. They vote, get paid, and have a pension once their service is up. The clones have none of this. They're treated like products, and they often resent how the new soldiers seem to look down on them. When these new recruits are inserted into clone units, the dynamic is often thrown off, and cohesion begins to slip. Groups form within the wider Republic legions, and clones naturally become socially segregated from the normal citizens. Admiral Wilhuff Tarkin, in his position of command, often ends up furthering these divides. His bias against the clones and the Jedi begins to show in full force, as he clearly favors the non-manufactured troops. On one mission, a small squad of clones known as Delta is sent to Onderon in order to apprehend a key asset to the Republic, a super tactical droid. In this timeline, instead of sending Anakin and Ahsoka to train troops with the 501st on Onderon, the Republic decides to use a different strategy in hopes that resources will be preserved, and they simply send in their special forces to destabilize the government. Delta's mission is successful, and they end up taking out King Rash while also apprehending his super tactical droid that had been organizing strikes against Onderon's rebellion. This allows the resistance forces to make gains and re-establish the old Republic-sympathizing government. Republic High Command orders Delta to bring the droid back in one piece, as they want to study it and try to figure out why their enemy's tactics are working so well. As Delta boards their ship with a super tactical droid, which had been shut off upon its capture, Scorch accidentally bumps it against the wall, and the droid turns back on. After a brief struggle with the tactical droid, it promises to settle down if they leave it powered on. Boss reluctantly agrees, but he places binders on the droid. On the way back to Coruscant, the droid eggs them on, saying that the Republic didn't care about them, nor did it care for the freedom and democracy that it espoused. The fact that Palpatine was creating a military-industrial complex in order to deal with people who simply wanted freedom from the tyranny confirmed this to the droid, and it legitimately believes in the Separatist cause. This results in Scorch giving the droid a quick slap upside the head, but each of the clones get into their private thoughts. The new troops didn't care about them at all, and they were treated as tools with no chance at a normal life. What if the Republic was wrong? This sentiment isn't unique to Delta. Many of the regs are becoming increasingly frustrated with their treatment from the volunteer force, and they make their voices heard. Within the 501st, Rex must quell concerns from troops like Fives, Jesse, and Apo, who start to tell him that they're getting squirrely. One day, during the Umbara situation, things reach a boiling point. Krell maintains an iron fist over his clone forces, and he has a clear preference for the volunteer soldiers, listening to their perspectives and hiding them from the main conflict. Because of Krell's absurd battle tactics, along with the brave actions of Fives, Hardcase, and Jesse in attacking the supply ship, the 501st is still successful in securing their objective. Tensions rise, though, especially after the 501st refuse to execute their men for disobeying Krell. After Krell orders his troops to shoot at the 212th and kill Waxer, that's when Rex becomes fed up. He, along with volunteers from the 501st, conduct their mutiny against the rampaging Jedi General. However, in this timeline, things go very differently. Rex was about to have a run for his money, and this battle would change everything about the Republic going forward. When Rex and his troops come to take General Krell hostage, he is surrounded by volunteer soldiers. In this moment, Rex feels a pit begin to form in his stomach, as he doesn't want to kill his fellow Republic soldiers, despite the way that he had been treated by them. He knew that this would turn into a firefight, and now Rex had to mentally prepare for that fact. There was no backing out now. Rex raises his rifle, placing Krell under arrest for the way that he had pit two clone battalions against one another. The volunteer force, who like Krell, say that it had been faulty intelligence provided to the general, not an active campaign against fellow clones. Rex turns to these troops and he tells them that he was under the impression that Krell had actively been attempting to kill off the clones throughout his career, and that now it was time to stop. Krell smiles and utters the famous line, "It's treason then," before igniting his double-bladed lightsabers and engaging the clones. At first, the volunteers are hesitant to strike against the 501st, as they have the same sentiments that Rex does. As the battle goes on, Rex pleads with them to join his side against the general. They were, after all soldiers. Surely they didn't want to see clones die. Krell pushes back, though, stating that these clones were traitors that deserved death. They were nothing more than dogs. To Rex's dismay, the volunteer troops turn their blasters and fire on the 501st. In this scenario, it isn't Krell that is forced to run away. Instead, it's Rex's contingent of clones. More volunteer troops pour into Krell's command office tower, and Rex finds his contingent outnumbered. He's forced to order a retreat after many of his men are killed by Krell, who now has a small army on his side. As they're fleeing, it becomes clear that not all the troops will make it. He stays with them, and he almost makes it off the base into the dark jungle beyond. However, just as Rex is about to escape into the woods with his troops, Krell catches up to him and slices off his left leg at the calf. Rex cries out in pain, but he tells Tup to lead his men beyond the base. Tup obliges, giving a brief nod to his commander in respect, before continuing. Krell smiles in pleasure as he picks up Rex with the Force and tells the clone captain that he will take immense pleasure in killing him. Rex, who's quick on his feet in situations like this, pulls his blaster from his holster and fires it at Krell's chest. The Jedi looks at Rex, his eyes full of malice and surprise, as clearly he hadn't anticipated Rex's resourcefulness, and he was so engaged with his dark side that he didn't sense Rex's movements. Rex falls to the ground as Krell stumbles backwards, and Rex fires one more shot off at the Jedi, just to make sure that this monster was dead. Krell falls to the ground, finally finished with his command of tyranny over the clones. Rex is soon apprehended and detained by the volunteer forces, and he awaits further commands from Coruscant. Following this event, a special hearing is held in the Senate. There had been a clear abuse of military power on the part of Krell. However, at the same time, this highlighted just how fractured the new military system had made the front lines of service. Many senators who had benefited from the increased support on the front lines from volunteer soldiers are torn. They didn't want to get rid of the clones, but they also wanted to maintain a volunteer standing army to keep up with the Confederacy's attacks. Tarkin advocates for getting rid of the clones, as clearly they could not obey instructions from superior officers. When Rex testifies before the Senate, he tells them the story of what had happened, and he informs them that his men had been discriminated against simply because of their status as clones. If the Republic was treating them like this, how are they any better than the Separatists? Rex says that he would bet his life on the idea of the Republic. Freedom, democracy, everything that he was fighting for, he believed in it. Yet, after seeing that the government didn't seem to care about him at all, and neither did some Jedi generals, he was starting to think that it wasn't everything that it was cracked up to be. Many of the 501st troopers who escaped Krell's carnage return to Coruscant, and they want to help support Rex in the Senate. Due to their actions, they are taken out of active duty by Republic High Command, and many of them are placed on desk jobs. Some of them have court-martials, and there are mixed results in their trials. There are those who are let off by tribunals that sympathize with the clones. Then, there are others who are sentenced to life in Republic military prison for their crimes, as these tribunals are composed of people who see the clones as nothing more than government tools. A few of the 501sters that fled Krell end up escaping Umbara, and they flee to nearby worlds, looking to establish new lives for themselves away from all of the politics. Perhaps there was a shot at living like everyone else, after all. When Anakin sees what happened to Rex, he's infuriated. Palpatine sees this as an opportunity, and he twists Anakin's perception of the Jedi, trying to say that as an order, they didn't seem to care for the lives of their men. Pong Krell is a perfect example of this. Anakin starts to buy into all of this, especially after seeing how other commanders treated their troops. He visits Rex, who had received a mechanical leg and was working towards recovery on Coruscant, and says that this wasn't right. Rex tells Anakin that he agrees, and following his trial before the military tribunal that was going to be headed by Tarkin, he likely wouldn't be serving in the GAR anymore, even if he were to win his case. Anakin tells him that he'll watch out for him, and that he'll champion clones within the Order. But Rex tells Anakin that he's just done with fighting. He's still a soldier at heart, but he couldn't work for an organization that treated his brothers in arms like garbage, especially when they seemed to favor the volunteers. Anakin understands, but he still harbors distrust for the Jedi military command after this moment. How do all of these events impact the end of our story? Let's keep going to find out. With the debate raging on the Senate floor regarding the use of clones in the military, the Confederacy takes advantage of the instability caused by the Umbara situation. They too start to run out of money due to the advanced nature of their droids, but the banking clan is willing to give them loans with less interest than they do to the Republic, due to the nature of their treaty with Dooku. While the politics grind to a halt within the Republic, the war still rages on, and the people of the Republic begin to suffer. Public discontent with the war starts to rise, and Palpatine is forced to listen to their wishes, or risk a vote of no confidence. As the Confederacy cuts off key supply lines while military command of the Republic is consumed with Senate hearings and oversight committees, Chancellor Palpatine uses his executive powers to reach out and propose a peace treaty. The Republic would allow the Confederacy to self-govern, and it would recognize their sovereignty, so long as they kept their droid defense forces out of Republic territory, and all trade routes were maintained. The Confederacy's parliament agrees to these terms, and peace is reached with Palpatine and Dooku shaking hands for the galaxy to witness. While this may seem like a loss for Palpatine, it fits perfectly into his plan. Following his little war, he has justification to further the military defense force for the Republic. While there's a small group of doves in the Senate led by Padme Amidala, most senators are concerned with preserving the well-being of their citizens in the future, and they believe that the military will help them do that. They vote to further military funding following the war, and also to further Republic campaign propaganda that would attract new recruits to volunteer. Palpatine is able to convince the Senate that clones should be phased out after the entire fiasco with Krell, and he discards them, just as is seen in the Bad Batch. Tarkin becomes the face of the Republic military, and he attracts many new people to join the centralized defense force. Palpatine decides that once his military is built up enough, he will launch a new offensive against the Separatists, one that will be far more effective than the First War. While the Confederacy established itself in the galactic sphere, Palpatine continues to plot in the shadows, twisting Anakin against the Jedi and getting ready to execute his plan against their order. While the clones may have been gone, this new wave of Republic nationalism within the military would surely convince new recruits to follow Order 66 when the day inevitably came that order would be given. Another thing about Palpatine is that he still manages to extend his term limit. While he relinquishes emergency powers within the Senate, the military leadership continues to back him as Supreme Chancellor. Tarkin advocates that Palpatine continue to serve in a position of leadership, and many senators actually agree with what Tarkin has to say. They like him based on his actions in the Clone Wars, and they also like Admiral Wolf Yularen, who states something similar. So, the Senate elects Chancellor Palpatine once again, which prompts the suspicion of the Jedi that perhaps something more was going on behind the scenes. The reason that military leadership continues to support Palpatine is because they know that with him as Supreme Chancellor, they will get more funding and will be able to further their own personal agendas within the military. Beyond that, they also think that this is the right step for the Republic. During this time, peace prospers. However, the Republic continues to build its military, and the clones haven't earned respect for their service from many citizens. While the galaxy is orderly, things aren't always as they seem. Palpatine's Republic is now characterized by stability, and the lives of his people seem better than they were before the war. Life begins to settle down in the Republic, along with in the Confederacy, and the citizens of both governments start to forget the war, as people have short memories. History has a habit of repeating itself, though, especially when people become complacent with their fallouts. Hello there, friends. I hope that you enjoyed today's What If video. If you did like it, I'd recommend checking out this other video, What If Donald Trump Was the Republic Chancellor? If you have anything to say about this story, let's hear it in the comments. Would you like to see a part 2? What do you think would happen next if you'd like to see the story continue? Have an incredible day, fellow Star Wars fans, and as always, I hope that you've gotten your delicious daily dose of Bantha Stew.